Welcome to another Crypto CEO show. We have Marc Taverner with us. He's experienced in multinational corporates and startups, helping company accelerate growth and attain the next level. CEO and founder at XEROF, that is Xerox. That's a printer. Um, and he was also the founder of a bunch of cool startups spread through Switzerland, Belgium. He's in London right now. Apparently, London's not doing so well. Has a background in sales. Cool guy altogether. Eager to jump in the conversation. Quick sponsor today for the podcast, bitbars.xyz. They're monetizing block space. Pretty interesting projects. If you want to go check it out, bitbars.xyz. Marc, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thank you, Charles. Pleasure to be here. Firstly, I want to say how much I should thank you, because I don't think I've ever been called a cool guy. Thank you very much.
Why not? You sound like a cool guy. I'm reading your background here. You have a sales background, which is always a good indicator. Yeah. You're head of a great crypto startup right now, and look pretty hip. So why not?
Well, that's very kind of you. Yeah, so you're right. Look, I said two things when I left university, which I went to drink a lot of beer and play a lot of football or soccer, because I found out at the age of 18 that I was exceptional at both of those particular talents that God gave me. But when I was needing to get serious after 6 years of doing that very, very well all over the world, I said, no idea what I want to do. But there are two things I don't think I ever want to do. One is be involved in sales, and the second is anything to do with technology. So the first goddamn thing I did was set up a fax modem business in the early 90s, distributing fax modems to little mom and pop stores on the high streets in the UK that were building desk-based PCs. And this is in the days of bulletin boards. So I've always been in startups. I've always been in early stage companies, mostly always been in technology companies. And you're right, always been responsible for driving revenue, because revenue is the heartbeat and lifeblood of every single organization, yours, mine, everyone's, even those that don't want to admit it. So you're right, I'm a proud sales guy, proud startup junkie.
I started in sales as well, but do you think that thesis that sales is the motor of most companies will stay true in the age of AI? I tend to think that sales will disappear and it will be fully product led in probably 10 to 15 years from now.
Great thesis. I want to go a step further with that, because I do believe that. I think most human work will be redundant. And in fact, I'm spending the whole of 2025 trying to find a way to use technology to do everything that I currently do. This is almost an extension of the thinking around universal income, whereby I have a firm belief that in a post-Web3 agentic economy, we will have digital versions of ourselves doing the work that we do today, everything from paying a credit card bill to, maybe even talking here, answering communications, launching outbound communications, all those types of things will be done by a digital version of us. And we will then be freed up to be able to choose what we want to do as human beings, as the flesh and bones. And we're probably going to face a number of challenges if in that thesis I project to you, the agentic version of me, the digital version of me, manages to create a basic income to allow me to survive, and I'm just using me as an example in the future, then suddenly I have a huge challenge, which is, what do I fill my day with? Because I no longer have to chase a dollar. The 9-to-5 concept, to earn a living, be beholden to a boss, prove that you've hit your KPIs, get on with your fellow workers, drink a lot of beer with them, occasionally tell them exactly what you think, maybe then get fired the next day, need to find a new employment. That endless treadmill that we've been on as humans for goodness knows how long, I think is going to disappear. And therefore, Charles, I don't think it's just salespeople. I think it's lawyers, HR, you name it. It's every function, pretty much every job that you can think of. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but I do think technology is evolving far more quickly than we will give it credit for at this point in time.
Fully agree with all of that. So I've got three questions here. Let's test your memory here. But agentic, I'm 100% in agreement with that, and UBI too. Web3, I'm not sure though. So if you can explain that part, I think the human transition and pivot will be easy. For I think we'll do just what we like, and I can even see myself like a grinder, like pivoting to that fully passion first life. For example, now I have a humor newsletter, and I think people should start gradually pivoting to that with ikigai philosophy. So first question, I guess, is the Web3. What's the role there? And yeah, the UBI precisely. How would that happen? Would that be through Web3? Do you think?
No, so I think when I say a post Web3 world, we're in a Web3 world right now where a number of technologies have converged to allow degrees of automation to happen. So we have the concept of smart contracts, we have the concept of tokenized value, if you will, internet money, and those two key elements of Web3 allow machines the possibility to engage with each other, undertake certain actions within certain parameters, and then recompense or settle those contracts, exchange value between themselves. And a number of technologies have allowed that particular situation to become real as we enjoy it today. I think that will move on very quickly, and we'll move into a post Web3 where we won't be focused on smart contracts, developing blockchains, obsessed with, is it a layer one, is it a layer two, is it a ZK proof? We'll focus far more on the utility that comes from that. And therefore, I think the universal basic income in this post Web3 world will be derived from, yes, the digital version of me exchanging value with other machines that are out there, other organizations, other digital versions of individuals in return for things that they seek that maybe the digital version of me has. It might be some information about how I drive or which type of vehicle I choose to get in, if it's a self-driven vehicle or if it's a self-driving vehicle. Or it may be some information about my lifestyle as it relates to my life insurance. Those elements of value will allow what I call micropayments or dust payments, smaller than micropayments, to be realized between these agents. And that in aggregate is what will contribute towards creating this version of income, which I refer to as universal basic income, just to allow people to kind of latch onto the thought process, as it were. It'll give enough income, it should give enough income for me, the digital version of me, at some point in the future, to be able to have finance to survive, to pay for my lodgings, to pay for my food, and to a certain extent, maybe to invest in some of the hobbies or lifestyle choices that the physical me wants to undertake, whether that's generating comedy and circulating comedy, as you suggested, or whether it's doing things such as gardening and looking after the environment, or looking after older people, vulnerable people in the local society that you're in.
But will AGI have a blockchain backend to keep it impartial, or will it not? Is an AGI's nature to build its own self and it built its own quote unquote impartiality?
The version that I'm working to at the moment, because there are many different aspects to this agentic economy, if you will. I'm particularly focused on the individual me and the automated digital version of me that can live in this new digital world on my instruction. And yes, it is entirely possible that this technology could evolve further. And there is an interesting debate I'm having with some of the entrepreneurs and some of the super intelligent tech guys that I'm investing in to try and realize this vision around whether we should encourage that to happen, let that happen, or put guardrails to prevent that happening. Because the question that we're trying to answer is, moralistically, is it still you? If it's a better version of you, or if it's a more faulted version of you, or if it's a younger version of you that just never seems to age, is it still you?
I think it is.
Yeah. And what happens when the physical you dies? This was an interesting question posed to me by my kids. We're not sure. My kids said to me, Dad, we're not sure if we want to have a digital version of you hanging around. It might make us feel too sad because it might remind us that, we really miss the physical version of you. Or, we may have had enough of the physical version of you, and digital version of you just hangs around to really piss us off. Are you kidding us? Kill the damn thing.
I think, you're not the same version that you were at 18, right? Like, we don't change
Thank
drastically,
God,
but
no, Charles. Otherwise, you and I would be getting drunk right now and talking about when we
yes,
can next play football.
we absolutely would. I still remember my 18-year-old Euro trip. I didn't stop in London, but I did stop in Belgium and I stopped at the Delirium or something, and I think we got drunk for probably like 2 weeks. I stopped drinking after that. Thank God for that. Yeah, and I think we're still like some version of ourselves, right? I think we still don't understand like space time and all that. That we won't get into that conversation, but I would very much enjoy having, and maybe I could potentially build that like a version of my grandfather that passed away in 2005. I love that guy. Was a dentist, and I don't have enough data to reproduce who he was, or maybe I could ask my mom for that and build that version of him. I think also as humans we project a version of someone that we want, right? Like memory is viable, and we all have egos, and oh, my granddad, he was this and was that, without his flaws, right? I think most people would enjoy that, other than if it's like a dystopian scenario like you described.
Yeah, exactly. And, just to go back to, so some practical considerations, because, people watching this live or listening to this afterwards, might think that we're just imagining a future that is, beyond grasp and just not real. At XEROF, which is a company that we built, it's Forex backwards, by the way. You can tell we're not marketeers. We needed to come up with a name, and it's kind of representative of what we do. So XEROF is Forex backwards, and we built XEROF, which is Swiss-based, to solve a particular problem. And that problem was the interface between crypto and fiat, or fiat and crypto, particularly for high net worths and companies. It's a piece of friction in that stack of technologies that will allow this agentic economy to exist. And what we've found on this journey, as we've built XEROF quite successfully, is, and we're licensed and regulated. I should just add that, otherwise my PR team will, they will force me to go back to PR school after we finish this call. But the reason we built that was to remove the friction. And as we look forwards, these frictions are being removed, and the problems are being solved at a more rapid pace than we ever imagined possible. Whether that's from a regulatory perspective, with the marketing crypto assets regulation coming in Europe, which now gives at least some semblance of structure to how crypto is regulated across 30 countries in Europe, 500 million people, together with the Middle East, with VARA and Abu Dhabi. So whether it's from a regulatory perspective, whether it's from a technology perspective and the harmonization of certain protocols and approaches to how protocols can work across chain, or whether it's agreements around how value is exchanged between smart contracts, so that you don't just have to use one token in a smart contract anymore. These obstacles, these challenges are being removed at ever increasing paces. And just at the start of this year, I was presenting at St. Moritz this concept of a number of technologies coming together that was persuading me that now is the right time to focus on this project that I was just talking about, in much the same way as I put every single dollar of headspace I had on my credit card when I left university to buy fax modems, to resell them, because I believed that this thing that was coming, called the internet, would change our world, of certainly the world of commerce, immeasurably. I have exactly the same feeling about the convergence of blockchain technologies, crypto, and the ability to send value over the internet, about compute power, silicon design, the efficiencies that are being created in data centers, the regulatory structures that are educating people about the importance of data and helping people understand that the data they create themselves, the data that makes up them, should be in their control because it has value and it's been stolen by the FANGs, frankly, in the first wave of the internet. So this convergence of technologies, and this is before we even start talking about massive, massive availability of compute power on a scale that we've never seen before, touching on quantum compute as a service, for example, will present us with unique opportunities that, in my humble opinion, is going to do nothing other than accelerate this drive towards a world where lawyers just won't be needed. I use AI tremendously right now, tremendously, for a lot of the regulatory work I do around research. And I can see a future in just a few months where, instead of needing to check things with our compliance team and our external compliance team and law firms, who are amongst the best in the world, but by golly, do they charge because they know they're the best in the world? Maybe instead of spending, 20 hours a week on their services, I need to spend 1 hour a month just to have things checked, because I'm using this technology to run much of the work that otherwise I would be routing through them, and I become a lot more self-sufficient. So in XEROF, we've set ourselves the challenge this year of seeing if we can run this organization as a two-person company. That's
interesting. And why even two? Why not solo build?
Yeah, true. The reason too is because the nature of the business is that we move very high value amounts of either cryptocurrency or fiat around on behalf of our clients. And for security reasons, we need to have certain protocols, people that we trust, people who are in the seat of this regulated business in Switzerland if something goes wrong, just to deliver the service to our clients that we promised to deliver them. If it was not for that reason, we would probably be testing whether these technologies that we've deployed in the business could auto execute the trades for us as well. But our clients wouldn't want to hear that we are innovating with a few tens of millions of dollars worth of the value that they've entrusted us to run through a transaction for them. Not yet.
What do you believe the future regulatory landscape in businesses will be? Will it be like humans forming a council to decide about if this decision is right or wrong? Do you think we can outsource that philosophy to an actual country? Do you think democracy will actually scale?
Interesting question, Charles. So we already have, a few tests around the concept of liquid democracy, where, as citizens, we can gift our vote to those politicians that we choose to have represent us. And based on what we believe are their principles, their characteristics, and what they say they stand for, we entrust them through this concept of liquid democracy with our vote and therefore our decision making, without wishing to get engaged or involved in what the specifics are that they may be using our vote to either try and pass or not pass. So the concept of that, to a certain extent, is already present in this notion of liquid democracy. But to go a step further, I guess your point is, would democracy itself be challenged if, in an agentic world, the digital version of Marc was getting involved at a hyper efficient speed in that democratic process, and instead of an election taking, between 4 weeks, if it's done really quickly, to 6 months, with the marketing, the campaign trail, the endless chat shows, the Facebook ads, if it was done in 20-minute window by agentic technologies leveraging massive amounts of compute power, cryptography to attest to bona fide identity of these agentic agents on behalf of people, and then just massively accelerate the process. It would need a lot less administration, and the governmental function, which is at the core of democracy, would be a lot cheaper to administer, which would mean we might have money to actually fill the potholes here in London that we're becoming to be known for around the world, for example.
Not only in London, it's also in my native Montreal and in Oaxaca here. It's pretty terrible. You need like a a Jeep, a 4x4 here. What if AI Mark or AI augmented Mark can have the right to vote because he's adding value and he's more intelligent? He has this non-AI augmented human with the non-AI augmented human, which is why Trump got elected. Would that person still have the right to vote?
No, I think it's still one vote for one person, if that's your question. You know, would there be two votes? Is that your question? Would there be a vote for Mark 2, the digital Mark, and
Well,
still a
I
vote for
think like
Mark 1, original Mark?
people that don't add value or don't have a clue about what they're thinking or voting about, I don't think they should have a right to vote. They didn't do the due diligence, and
Yeah.
their vote is pure crap. It won't lead the full group in the right direction. I think just that the structure of a country is flawed, like Balaji described. I think we're going to have a network state in the future. Do you believe in that as well?
I think we will have a network state, just because we'll be seeking economies of scale in governments. To go back to the references you make to the US is looking for economies at a governmental level. They're looking to cut costs. Here in the UK, the government is announcing a series of measures to do the same thing in a less dramatic fashion, and maybe some would argue a more collaborative fashion, but the need is there to reduce what has become a very bloated governmental or public service entity. It's interesting because to a certain extent, public entities need to be large and bloated because the process of democracy as it stands right now, with humans massively involved, is long. It requires discussion. It is inefficient, deliberately inefficient, perhaps, to prevent very bad mistakes from occurring. But if there was a more efficient way of working towards the same objective and achieving an equally balanced outcome, then undoubtedly you would have a far more efficient governmental function. Now, to your point, should idiots be allowed to vote? Democracy kind of says yes, I'm afraid. But I think a different way of looking at that particular challenge that you raise, with firsthand experience, again, here in the UK, of having voted to leave Europe, I think individuals probably should need to prove that they have done a level of research and educated themselves before they're allowed to cast their vote, rather than just believing the headlines, for example, and have a depth of knowledge that they've built up on which they form their opinion, rather than just reading the side of a bus, which is what I believe many people did here in the UK, that said, hey, by leaving Europe, we'll be able to put £325 million a day into the NHS, which will solve all our problems. Now, that wasn't true at all by any stretch of the imagination, but that was what most people voted on, apart from those who wanted to make Britain great again and go back to the era when we were sailing around in wooden sail ships, conquering nations and enslaving people, which, made us quite rich, but didn't make us very popular, and certainly wasn't a very fair way of administering democracy and building societies, right?
But don't you think that is essential to have like one hegemonic power to consolidate power and make peace actually happen?
Just expand on that a little more, Charles.
US is hegemony right now, and we've seen. We haven't seen shit go really bad. That would need some more scientific research to back this up. But yeah, I think generally we need one leader in this world to follow. Just for simplicity purposes, that's also like genetic wise and our tribes. There's always one leader. I think in the future will be an AGI and a network state. But I think that's what's generally needed, like one power to make up the rules and have people fight less, right? Unify, quote unquote, people.
So almost like a benevolent dictatorship.
Sort of, yes. I wouldn't describe US that way, nor would I describe written that way, although like one could technically point the finger at that and mention slavery and all the nasty shit, right? But I think that Western civilizations have been more liberal. Um, I think it's also dependent on the technology that they had, right? Like as a technologist, a maximalist on my end, I very much believe in that. The more technology we have, the better it becomes, the more problems we can solve, the less bestial we can be as creatures, don't you think?
Yes, to a certain extent, but I think that is in my opinion, that's a very dangerous view of the world, because having one all-powerful leader, it's a massive honeypot. You reference the US and what's going on apparently in terms of grabs for power. Why is that occurring? Well, maybe because it's quite appealing. And I'm just throwing, suppositions out there right now.
Oh,
It
it's
could be
not a
because it's quite appealing,
supposition.
and it's quite a big honeypot. If you multiply that by however many countries there are in the world, suddenly the battle for who has ultimate authority over the world, wow, that could achieve the opposite of what you said you hoped it would achieve in terms of stopping the wars, and it could just push us into a state of perpetual war, where that one leader and their supporters are constantly at risk and challenged, because the bad actors who will exist, it's just it's a human nature, an animalistic nature, a biological nature. Even in the plant world, there is aggression towards non-varieties, or varieties that are not your own variety of plant, because it's a competition to survive. So it's in biology, it's in our DNA as living things to compete, and that won't go away. So if you have a
I think it
honeypot
will
situation,
with
there it
CRISPR.
is, one person, winner takes all. Wow, there could be those with the means, with the desires, and with the slight negativity or negative approach towards trying to attain that, who could make the world not a better place but a worse place, and it could just be a constant state of war.
Could be. Starting with US, right? I think it's democracy as a system, is the electoral system. It's
I've just lost
exactly,
your audio, just 1 second, but
yeah. Maybe I'll be back, but I think I'm audible. Yeah, I think coming back to the US, I think it's definitely the electoral system, the democracy, and giving the right to vote to idiots. Basically, that system is really manipulatable, and a whole bunch of other problems. I think CRISPR will fix that. I have posted a LinkedIn inquiry the other day. If most people thought that testosterone was at the root cause of war, 40% answered yes. The 60% were testosterone-less men, by the way, which I am too, but I'm quite honest about my biochemical nature of things. And I think if we can edit our genes and change that in the gene pool, that would be less destructive, more cooperative in some shape and form. I'm not saying to take testosterone down. I'm not like one of these woke people, but I do think that that needs to change, right? Because else wars will just continue raging. And yeah, we're in a very tricky situation right now, and I just wish that AGI and blockchain for potential impartiality could kick in sooner. That is also contrarian. Mark, where can people find out more about you?
So they can check out our website, XEROF.com. That's XEROF.com. And on there, you can get yourself a link to my LinkedIn profile. I think my cell phone number's there. I think my email address is there. Or you could just shoot me a note, Marc, M-A-R-C, @XEROF.com. Or you could just go to my LinkedIn profile, shoot me a note on there. I get thousands of people a day trying to sell me IT outsourcing. So as long as you're not going to do that and you want to have a proper conversation, I'll always respond.
I was Marc Taverner.